Hey, Carl.
Hi, John Grande.
Hi.
10 questions?
Sure.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, Spider-Man.
What is your favorite color?
Purple.
Who do you admire?
My wife, Callista.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert, mostly.
Describe Canyon Lake in one word.
Community.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Toast or bagels?
New Jersey bagels.
Lobster or crab?
Dungeness crab.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Well,
Good morning, Carl.
Thank you again, John.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to just thank, everybody who's watching either on my East Coast feed back in New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, but then I'm here in Canyon Lake, and it's good to have a local coming on Carl's Corner on my podcast. I found that I've actually known about 5 years John Grande when I was involved with solar about 5 years ago, and through these last couple of years going through a lot of crazy times. But then the last year I ended up actually moving into this community, and I found that, hey, who's the head of the Chamber of Commerce out here? John
That's
Grande.
right.
And I think, hey, I know that guy, and I started belonging. And we started going to a few meetings, got our friendship back together again. And I always mentioned I was getting involved with podcasting. And John came to me about a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, Carl, I'm going to do a podcast. And I said, John, wonderful. Love to have you on here. So, John, thanks again for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me as your guest.
And, John, I think you have a unique opportunity and a reason why you want to do one. So you have the floor, John.
Yeah, no, thanks. Well, first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Donna Ritchie of the Canyon Lake Insider. She's the one who actually produced that 10 questions video. It's a fun thing that she does here in the community. She'll, find someone that she, friends with or is aware of and throw out these 10 questions and post it on social media. It's been a lot of fun and fun watching other people's responses to their 10 questions, as well as the comments people are making to mine. So thanks, Donna, if you're listening, thanks. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. As you and I discussed, the topic of this upcoming podcast is going to be advice for women from a man's point of view. Something that's kind of been in the back of my mind for quite some time, and finally decided to pull the trigger.
Well, I'm happy the first time you're doing the pulling the trigger is on my podcast.
That's right.
So I know it's a big, wide range of a subject, but specifically, what are you trying to do in this, obviously, this crazy age that we live in today, the PC and everything going on, but then you as a...
I don't think I'm offensive, but I don't go out of my way to be PC, right? But, the thought is, it's a couple of things. First of all, I don't think advice for a woman from a man's point of view is any better or any worse than other advice that women may be getting. But, the thought came to me when I realized there are times I've gone to people for advice, just like most of us. And the thing I realized is that when I go to a woman for advice, especially when it was about women, they see things very differently than I do. And it made me realize that, women may like to hear things from a man's point of view, especially when it comes to men. I enjoy helping people. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. I'm just a guy who's kind of been around the block a few times and has thoughts and opinions. And maybe my opinions are going to be valid. Maybe, people are going to want to throw them out the window, but nevertheless, hoping to have some fun doing this. And if we can help a few people along the way, that'll be even better.
So I think you've already put out some feelers out here before you going to be on here. So I think you've gotten some interesting feedback. So you actually have some not made up, some actual people that have sent you some information that you were going to go over, correct?
Yeah. So, I kind of did a little blast on social media, included a form. Maybe we can include a link to that form in this broadcast, so anyone can go on and fill it out. So we got a few responses, and also dug a little on social media and found advice that people were asking for, not specifically from me, but from the world, and some interesting things here. So I thought I'd print them out, and maybe we can address one or two of those as well.
Well, John, you got the floor. You can get started whenever you're ready, buddy.
Right on. Well, first one, This is an anonymous submission, but interesting because the person who submitted this asked the question first and then kind of gave the explanation after, but that's fine. The question is, do you feel it's better for a husband and wife to be more or less compatible, meaning opposites attract? Many people think it's because of the lack of commonality that their relationship does not work. Relationships oftentimes don't work because of selfish tendencies, not due to the lack of commonalities. Listen, communicate, trust, and try new things your spouse likes keeps your relationship happy and healthy as long as both partners are making the effort. So it almost sounds like she answered her own question, but I'd kind of like to respond to that. So, the word that was used more than once here is commonalities. And I think in relationships, there are certain things that, are kind of detrimental to have in common. And there are other things that, are not going to be that big of a deal. So what I'm aiming at that is, let's talk about opposites attract. So I think, where opposites can attract and kind of be strengthful is when it comes to personality differences. So if you have someone who's, say, an introvert, but the partner is an extrovert, that could work really well to both their advantages. You got someone who, always plans for the future, but then you got the other person who's always just wants to live for the moment. Well, I think those two can, again, complement each other. The key there is, of course, respect, and communication. I think where it starts to get a little fuzzy is when it comes to, common interests. And I'm a big fan, by the way, that within a couple, that one partner, has their interests and their hobbies, the other has theirs. But if you can find one or two things that you both enjoy, that's great, right? So maybe, he's into sports and she's into, ceramics, right? Great. Now he takes her to a sports game and, she may be scrolling on her phone, she may be bored, and he's going to notice that. And that's not going to be quite as fun as if she's cheering on the home team as well. But, if they could find maybe, I don't know, line dancing, right? Maybe that's something they both want to do and they can have fun with that together. But that has to do with fun. I think, the most important things that really can't be compromised on is values and goals. If you have an entirely different set of goals and a different value system, you got someone who's a born again Christian and then the other partner is an atheist. I have a feeling there's going to be some conflict there. How to raise the children. Maybe, one of the partners decides they want to have a strong, disciplined approach. The other one is let kids be kids and do whatever they want. There's going to be some problems there. So I think when it comes to values or goals, then it's really important to have everything in common. But otherwise, as far as activities and having fun, yeah, I think it's kind of cool if you can have one or two things in common that you could do together. But I think it's also real important for people to go out on their own.
Well, John, that was very insightful. And I know for people who are
What are your thoughts?
I agree 100% because I'm a little bit older than you. We have life, experiences that, we've experienced. But I think as people are going to be looking at this, well, John, give a little bit of background of who you are, where you came from. I know we're both East Coast guys originally, and you've been out here. But give a little quick resume about who you are, where you came from, and really what you're looking to maybe do to maybe have this podcast with this subject have some legs down the road.
Sure thing. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I've been here in California this time around since 2007. I came out here to accept a job offer, and I've been here ever since. And, there's definitely cultural differences between, the states of the Northeast and California. And it took me quite a while to kind of feel like I fit in. Some ways I feel like I still don't, but I've really grown to appreciate the lifestyle here, especially, after I met my wife, Callista. She's a California girl. And, now I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. We met later in life, which, in my opinion, fosters even a stronger relationship because, when you meet someone in your 40s or 50s, you'll have a tendency to kind of already be who you're going to be as opposed to meeting someone when you're 20. And a lot of times at that age, we don't know who we're going to be later on. I tell her all the time, you've got the best version of me now. And she tends to, give a little smile when I say that.
John, if you don't mind, I want to use that because in my life, in the last 4 to 5 months, I've had some miraculous things. Someone from my past that wanted to come back into my life.
Yeah.
I said something almost along those lines. I'm the best. What you say? The best version of me now.
Yeah.
I think that's classic. If you write a book, that's your book title.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I could really relate. I do have some more years than you have, and a little bit of some kind of similar situation. I've been out here since 2018. It is different, but you just look at my background. I'm on the other side of the main highway here, but John lives in Canyon Lake. It does have a heck of a lifestyle out here, and it's just like really nice with the weather. And I think both being Northeasters, we don't have to worry about that wintertime sludge and rain and ice and
we
whatever.
don't have to shovel.
No, or straight. And the thing is, then you could really devote your time into really good community thing because you mentioned Canyon Lake as far as community.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, you might have another comment here, but I think it's positive mental attitude. If you're looking at things, you don't have other things that are weighing you down with just life. And I think half of it's your environment and weather. And me out here, there's no way I would want to go back and live.
No
visit,
way.
correct? You visit.
Yeah,
So,
and I love visiting. I go back 2 or 3 times a year. My parents are still alive, so I try to get out there whenever
great
I
that you
can.
still have them.
And
Yes.
I love being there. Like, I just really feel like I'm back home for a variety of reasons. However, when I come back, I love playing golf in January.
Yes.
I like, it does get pretty hot where we live in the summertime. We know that. But that's only 8 hours a day for 4 months. So if you could put up with 8 hours a day of extreme heat from June to September, the rest of the year and the rest of the hours a great place to be. Not to mention, it's a very laid back approach to life here, which took me a while to appreciate, but definitely appreciate it now.
Well, I do appreciate this little unseasonably cool weather we're getting. We get that we call that a marine layer that keeps coming in off the ocean at night, and it
Yeah,
takes
a little
while,
bit.
and it's really refreshing here.
Yeah.
All right, John, getting back to what your initial reason to be on here with this advice. Now, what other ones that you might have or elaborate?
Well, here's one that I pulled from social media, and
Right.
I'm going to ask you to stay on the screen because I think the audience will be amused at your reaction to what I'm about to read.
Okay, not a problem. Not a problem.
I am 41-year-old female and have been married for 2 years. My marriage isn't going as great because as I settled for a partner, I wasn't really in love. I'm sorry. Let me read that again. My marriage isn't going as great because as I settled for a partner, I really wasn't in love with because I thought time was running out. Let's think of that key word there, settled, right?
Oh, yeah, settled.
A few months after we got married, I realized the marriage wasn't really what I wanted, mainly because my husband lacks ambition. And I, on the other hand, have always been ambitious and have worked hard for the finer things in life. The problem is that ever since I realized I was unhappy in this marriage, my mind went back to my ex that I dated in university and my first few years of working. My ex and I dated for 3 years and lived together. We were very happy and were both ambitious. We had planned to get married. However, the relationship ended at some point as I was doing very well in my career, and he was the type of man that cared so much about being ahead and being the man in the relationship. So my getting ahead created problems and we broke up. Although I feel that we could have worked on our issues because we were truly happy prior to the last few months of our relationship. We loved each other and had grand plans. We saved and acquired a lot together. We were focused. After we broke up, now mind you, this is a long time ago, right? After we broke up, we never kept in touch, and I never ever thought about him until I got married to my current husband about 2 years ago. Now, because my current husband lacks ambition and doesn't want anything in life, I can't help thinking about my ex. If I were to rate my relationship with my ex in terms of happiness, compatibility, love, success, and everything else, my ex would be a 90%. The relationship ended because we failed to work on the little 10%. Now I'm married to a man who I would rate as a 12% in terms of the same factors. It makes me so miserable to think that I let go of a good man and believed I would find better and ended up with someone I don't even think I want to be with. I can't get my ex out of my head. My life would have been very far with him. I would be very, very happy had we had just worked on the minor issues. Anyone else been through this? How do I get my ex out of my head? My current husband's shortcomings constantly reminded me of my ex's strengths. Please let me know how I can forget about my ex, although we would have had a good life together. I haven't spoken to my ex since we broke up 15 years ago. But in the last 2 years that I have been married, I think about him 24/7. Excuse me. How do I get my ex out of my head? So this is loaded, Carl.
Well, I have a lot of comments too, but this is your part. But I
oh
can.
my goodness. So first of all, this woman sounds like a mess. I'm not going to mince words here.
She's very regretful.
What was that?
She's regretful for making a mistake.
Well, she just sounds like a grass is always greener kind of person. So I'm wondering if, like, for whatever reason, she wound up having and reestablishing a relationship with her ex. 2 years from now, she'd probably be writing the same letter about him. She did hint that she did mention that the reason why she broke up with him is because she was further ahead of him in her career. Seems like she's following that same trend. And now she can't seem to get this out of her idea. He's probably not even the same guy anymore. He's probably moved on pretty much, like, not even thinking about it. And,
but you never know.
I would say the best way to get him out of her head is maybe meet him for a cup of coffee and figure out a way to get some closure. I mean, either that or go to some therapy. Like, if you're obsessed over someone that you haven't seen in 15 years, you don't even know who they are anymore. They have their own life. So I think that's my advice regarding how to get this guy out of her head. But I think the other thing is, her willingness to settle. And, this poor husband she has now, he is who he is. And she knew who he is when she married him. And now she's regretting that. She's probably making his life a living hell, making her own life a living hell. I think, at this age, she didn't mention they have kids together, so they probably don't. I would say file for divorce, move on, let this guy get on with his life. And I think they're beyond therapy. I think she needs therapy, frankly. She can't let go of someone I'm thinking 15 years ago where I was, and there's no way I'd be thinking about someone I was with 15, 20. Maybe certain things come along in your life that remind you of that person, but not in a way that's like, oh, I wish I was still with them. Like, really figure it out. Like, and before you jump into another relationship, kind of get your own head and your own life together. And because it's not fair to yourself, and it's certainly not fair to your new partner.
Can I come up with a little bit of observation?
Yeah.
Now, I was a wedding photographer over 20 years, mostly 95% all back east.
Right.
I probably did over 100 weddings over 25 years. And as a wedding photographer, couples that are going to last, and a couple's like, what are you guys doing? You're not even going to last through the honeymoon. And one observation about your relationship with your wife, John. Let me ask you one question.
Sure.
Are you each other's best friends?
What was that?
Are you each other's best friends?
Oh, well, I can't speak for her. I would like to think I'm her best friend, but she's certainly mine.
It's vice versa. Observation, and I've always said that person you mentioned settled. You have to be with your best friend to make it work, because then they don't look at your misgivings or anything like that. And I think through my own personal situations, I'm not anybody to speak because I have been married 3 times, but there's long stories with that we will not get into. But your basis is your best friend.
Yeah.
If you settle, you're done. You're doomed.
I agree. But the other thing, the other things that she mentioned is that she's a lot more ambitious than her husband, right?
Like she didn't know that
And
ahead
she
of
also
time?
mentioned she seemed to be excelling in her career faster than her ex-boyfriend from 15 or 20 years ago. Okay. So there seems to be a common theme here, but I think, if we always think about the way men and women are wired differently. We hear a lot of that, and I'm a big
Wow.
believer of that. One of the things that I think goes to the core of what a woman wants in her husband or in her partner is someone who's going to provide and, kind of bring out that success that they're both going to have. Not to say that a woman can't have a career, because many do. But, my experience is if a woman is making $300,000 a year, she wants a husband who's making $350,000, right? So, the fact that her own words, settled, right? Because she settled for someone who's not making as much money in her and is not as ambitious. Well, yeah, she's naturally going to have those frustrations because she didn't bring into her life someone who is more ambitious and more successful than she was. She's going to constantly be reaching for that. And, I think she needs to take a good hard look at herself. And we all have deal breakers when we meet someone, right? So you meet someone, like, for example, when I was single and when, by the time I met, my current wife, deal breaker for me is a drug addict. I would have never dated someone who was a heroin addict, right? Like that's not,
alcoholic.
So, but the problem is I don't think we kind of articulate to ourselves enough other deal breakers. And the deal breaker for this woman should have been a successful partner who makes more money than me, So I think this person needs to take a good hard look at themselves.
Yes. Well, you have another one, John?
I do. And this one's a bit lengthy, but it's a little bit entertaining too.
You want me to stay on screen or you want me?
Yeah, please do.
You got it.
I really don't know what to do. This one, by the way, I pulled from social media as well. Really don't know what to do. My husband and I have been married 9 months. 9 months, she's already having issues, right? But I feel like it's all falling apart. We've been together a little over 4 years. In the beginning, everything was amazing. For the first year and a half, we had sex regularly. I worked from home and he would sit next to me my whole shift, talking, making us coffees, looking at me like I was the most amazing, beautiful person he had ever laid eyes on. Fast forward to when we got engaged, just shy of 2 years in. Our insecurities came out, and they came out ugly. Everything we thought we were over from our past suddenly came back to haunt us with a passion. Accusations of cheating, anger issues, etc. It was a rough ride. He had to leave his job due to mental health, and I supported him through counseling, etc., until he was back on his feet. So I'm going to cut myself short here. At that point, they should have just walked away from each other, right? I mean, they're having, her words, ugly. Things got ugly in a relationship. Well, why stay together? You want, especially, if you're later in life, why are you putting yourselves through these hell, right? I supported him through counseling, etc., until he was back on his feet. We've been through a lot in our time together. A lot of job losses on his side, some his fault, some not. A lot of family issues, stresses, having to work opposite shifts and having no time together at all. We've gone through being in phases where we've been able to enjoy 5-star luxury in the Caribbean to the polar opposite of sitting in a freezing house with a broken boiler and barely having enough tins in the cupboard to see us through and no money to buy anything more. But we made it through it all. I married him in total confidence that no matter what the world throws at us, we have solid foundations and can get each other through it. So this is really long-winded. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will tell you other things that she discussed is that he has some erection issues. Her words, can't get it up. She said, you know, the honeymoon and the wedding night was amazing. It was everything she wanted out of sex, but ever since then, he can't. And she's not feeling loved by him. She's not feeling, you know, sexy. She did mention that, you know, she's pretty much kept the same standard of attractiveness. She's even lost a little weight since she got married. But she says, I just don't know what to do. He's an amazing man, but he isn't abusive at all, and he tries his best. I just want some effort. He told me what he needs to feel loved, and I've made those changes. I've told him the same, and it's just false promises. I just feel at a loss. I don't want to break up my marriage. I have no interest in anyone else. I just want to feel loved by him. So let's talk about a few things. First of all, again, here's someone that kind of just jumped into things, right? Things got ugly and still decided to get married anyway. He can't seem to keep a job. She says sometimes his fault, sometimes the job's fault. I never buy that. Like,
No.
The job's fault, he's not working. Okay. So apparently he lacks discipline. He lacks work ethic. Yeah, he's real sweet to you because you're working all day and he's able to make coffee and little sandwiches and tell you little jokes. But let's talk about the erection issue. So there's a few things, and I don't know the details, but there's a few possibilities here. So number one, he needs to kind of express to you what's going on in his head. That's the first thing. But because this could be caused, first of all, maybe I'm guessing that he took some kind of a Viagra or Cialis or something on their honeymoon, because she said there were erection issues before they got married and then again after, but that 1 week was great. And this could be caused by a variety of reasons. It could be a physical thing that you need to see a doctor about. But, you know, the one thing that nobody ever really wants to talk about is how traumatizing a sexual experience can be for a man. And if you even have one or two times where you're not able to attain an erection, that could be really stressful the next time you try to lay with your partner, where that just occupies the thoughts of the man all the time. And that's all he's thinking about. And then it becomes this vicious cycle where he can't get into the moment. And then the woman feels like it's her fault and that kind of thing. So that's a real common thing. But I would say he needs to see either a doctor or a professional about this. The other thing is, which is a possibility, is maybe he's gay. I'll be, you know, a lot of women have married men who later on admitted they were gay, love them, but can't love them sexually, right? So it sounds like this guy has a lot of issues, but I think it's the same thing as the first person, right? Where you knew there were issues, you used the word ugly. Why would you marry someone where things really got ugly? Like when things get ugly, like when I think of ugly, I think of cheating, lying, calling people names, cursing at each other, being disrespectful.
Yeah, disrespect.
That's really some hard things to walk away from. Especially if she criticized him in the bedroom during that ugly period. Well, now he's going to have a really hard time getting past that. Or, no pun intended, he's not going to have a hard time. How's that? So, anyway, poor woman. So, what are your thoughts on this, Carl? Anything?
Well, John, the first thing that comes to my mind, and for some reason, men, well, there's no communication. There's a lack of communication.
I agree.
And depending on certain men, they feel if they would open up about that particular situation, he's going to lose the woman. But I think a woman would be more respectful of her partner if he would have come to say, hey, look, honey, before we even get involved with anything, I have this issue, whatever it may be. Then she at least is going to be in her mind, oh, I care for you. We'll work on it rather than try to be, you know, the stallion for a little bit of a time, but then not being open about what's the real problem. So, you know, there's a movie way back in our day to say, you know, hey, the problem is a lack of communication and people don't talk.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yes, there you go. So people do not want to, for whatever reason, express real feelings if there's a problem. And I think if there was communication there, a woman will say, wow, he was that upfront to let me know ahead of time. I respect that and we'll work on it. Right. There's where the woman's...
And they could work on it together.
nature will work and say, hey, let's go work this out rather than try to hide something and then it becomes a horrible issue. That's my observation. I think it's
And I would give this advice to any woman who's in the process of picking a partner. If you got a guy who can't keep a job,
well,
that's symptomatic of many more problems that are going to come along. Like that's, we're always taught, especially our generation, don't quit your job until you have another one lined up, right? Especially if you have a family that's depending on you. The fact that sometimes it's his fault, sometimes it's the job's fault. I don't buy that. Sometimes it can be the case, but if you're constantly losing your job, I can tell you, regardless of what he told you when you came home from being fired, it wasn't the job's fault. Businesses are in business to keep their employees. They don't just be like, screw up. They want people who are going to show up on time, who's going to do their job, who's going to be safe. There may be things that he didn't even tell you that when he's coming home and he's telling you a story and you're buying into it. You mentioned he has mental health issues. Well, that can be huge, isn't it? Those of us who've had employees, you want someone who's stable, at least pretends to be when they're on the job. So I think just this person did a really bad job in picking someone to get married. The red flags were there. Now she's kind of living with that issue. I think, the choices, you got one or two things. You either go into counseling, sending to therapy, depending on the severity of his mental health issues. He maybe need to kind of be admitted into a facility, but he needs help, and you're just being dragged along for the ride. If you're not prepared to do that, I say cut it clean and move on and get on with yourself.
Well, John, there's another issue that probably a podcast in its own: work ethic.
Yeah.
I'm sure we had strong parents that, my dad worked construction. I think I put something together about a month ago. Through college, I just couldn't get anything in my field. Make a long story short, he got me into construction, concrete work. In hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened. My father always said, because he was very successful, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But everybody, now I'm out there doing some photography. I was just at a, place yesterday, and the supervisor that I was doing some stuff for was complaining about his subordinates. Look what they didn't do this, then like they didn't do that. And I said, there's a reason why they're in that position. They will always be in that position, and why you have your position of authority, because you've worked harder and your employer will pay you more to supervise these people. John, you're a business owner. I'm sure you have a litany of examples of people who just think even going out there trying to earn a living is like foreign, like they should just be given the check and don't even show up. Am I right?
Yeah, right. And you could spot those people really quickly. They're really good at putting their best foot forward. You can interview well, they show up, and you're really impressed with them, but it doesn't take long for who they are to shine through. So I'm looking at the clock. I think we're kind of about ready to wrap things up, right, Carl?
If you want, because look, we're not on any set time. Now, John, I know on this initial one, did you cover everything you wanted to cover today, or were you
think
still?
So this is really, this is an introduction to, what's to be coming soon. I'm going to be doing this podcast fairly regularly. We'll be posting the podcast information, and you'll be able to find me on Apple podcast and Spotify and things like that. And we'll have a YouTube channel so you can look at the video versions of these. So I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we can help a person or two.
Well, John, I want to thank you for coming to me. I know I mentioned this, and that I know there's other people maybe in this market that maybe you could go to for podcasts, but then you picked me that we could do this inaugural podcast on the subject, and hopefully we'll have some legs. And it would be nice to maybe be at one of those locations there at the country club and maybe do something on location and with some actual other people that'll be able to have their insights on something. So I appreciate that. And anything else?
I'm so thrilled. And please include the link so people could submit their issues and concerns, and we'd do our best to address those.
So anything in conclusion, John, before we end this first one?
No, that's it. Just thanks for this opportunity, and looking forward to start broadcasting.
Well, thank you again. And for the next time, I appreciate John for being on here. And for the next one for Carl's Corner, we'll see you next time.